John McMullen joins us every day at this time with his look at the Eagles. He's got the stock report right now up at 97.3 ESPN.com, and he takes a look at 10 up, 10 down on this Eagles season, and we'll jump into that, plus a couple other news and notes around this team, as the Eagles won 3 of 4 against the Redskins under head coach Chip Kelly, and they have won 6 of their last 9 visits to FedEx Field, John. And with that, I say, look, you've taken care of business here in every possible way for the most part. You've dominated this series. This has got to be a game that, if you're Philadelphia and you want to be taken serious, you probably feel like winning in Washington is a step in that direction to going to where you might want to end up.
Yeah, and it's shaping up as a good matchup for the Eagles. Obviously, Deshaun Jackson ruled out today. that makes the Redskins so much less explosive. And really, reliant on basically 2 receivers, Pierre Garçon and the tight end Jordan Reed. So it's a very, very good matchup on paper for Philadelphia, and they have to take advantage of it. There's no question about that.
All right, John, if they're taking advantage of something, you did the 5 on the Redskins, you cover the league nationally, you've seen both these teams play. That's something that you think Philadelphia can really exploit and take advantage of on Sunday, which, by the way, I just got the email from the Eagles. This is at 4:08, which my clock on my computer says 4:07, so I don't know how they got it to me ahead of time. But the NFL statement on the Eagles is, we fully expect to play Sunday in Washington as scheduled at 1 p.m., and that is from the NFL to my email. So there you go. Play Sunday at 1, so everybody who has tickets, you can start driving on down there. So, John, what is that area that they can exploit on Sunday?
Well, I think it's the fact that Kirk Cousins has this mentality of a gunslinger, and he's willing to take chances and put the football in tight spaces, and that results in a lot of turnovers. I compared it, he sort of has a Brett Favre mentality without a Brett Favre arm. So he's turned it over. For all the criticism Robert Griffin III has gotten down there, they both have 23 careers as we speak today, and Griffin has about 600 more throws. So that tells you how often Kirk Cousins turns the football over, and the way the Eagles secondary has been playing, specifically Walter Thurman and Malcolm Jenkins back at safety, I think they're going to have a chance to turn it over a few times.
I've been saying throughout much of the day that this offense reminds me a little bit of what the Jets have. Some skilled players, but very limited at quarterback. Is the Washington offense, similar, where they have some skilled talent, but realistically their quarterback holds them back, much like Fitzpatrick's does with the Jets?
Well, I think their quarterback holds them back, but in a different mode. He has the ability to put up big numbers, which I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick really does. And you saw it. He threw for a career high, I think, 427 against the Eagles in one of his career outings. So he has the ability to get hot and sort of be like a streaky shooter in basketball and start nailing the threes, and this is getting the football down the field. Now, the problem is you don't have Deshaun Jackson out there. So that, again, it turns them into a much more predictable team that is going to be, taking the underneath stuff, and that helps. That helps any defense. We've seen how it's hurt the Eagles' offense by not having a guy like that. So taking them off, I think, really lessens the impact of Cousins possibly getting hot and having another one of those big games. And that obviously, trends well and bodes well for the Eagles.
Yeah, I want to ask you this, John. I don't know if you were at the game last year, the one in Philly when Cousins played in that game, but he looked sharp. 400-plus yards in that game. He threw all over Philadelphia in that game, and he hasn't really been able to expand on that. He has struggled since that day. But I guess that shows you that he does have that game in him, and that's something that the Eagles secondary should be concerned about. If the Washington staff is watching that game tape, that might be something they want to try to exploit.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I don't know if they can. Jordan Reed's having a really, really good year, so he's the one guy I think you need to keep an eye on. He's sort of become what the Eagles fans want Zach Ertz to become. in the fact that he's a big difference maker in the middle of the field as a receiving tight end. And he's really stepped up his game to the point that he's probably, even surpassed Garcon as that team's second best receiver. And people have known he's always had talent, but it's still a tight end. It's still the middle of the football field. And we've seen it with the Eagles on the other side of the coin. Even if Jordan Matthews gets it going from the slot position, it's difficult to make a defense back up if you don't have that guy outside the numbers that can scare them. And Washington, without Jackson's in the same situation as the Eagles.
Any scenario for you, John? An hour ago, our Sal Pal Friday, Sal tells us he thinks if Bradford's playing poorly at half and they are losing this game, that they need to seriously consider a change. Would you agree with that?
I agree with it, but I don't think the Eagles agree with it. I don't think there's any chance Sam Bradford is leaving this football game, with the exception of injury, obviously. People like to brush off things and compartmentalize and say it's all about Sunday. Chip constantly does that. But the reality of the situation, that he's getting paid $13 million, that the team gave up a second-round pick to get him, and Chip Kelly signed off on that, that throws some things into the equation that makes it difficult to go away from Sam Bradford. From a pure football sense, if this were an even keel, if this were truly an even competition, he probably would have been told already. Probably would have went to Mark Sanchez. But that's not the reality. This has to work for Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly. Well,
so you're saying, John, then Chip's stubbornness or ego would force him to make such a move?
Well, I don't know if it's stubbornness or ego. It's just reality, and it's not only Chip Kelly. It could be any situation around the NFL. Unfortunately, he put himself in this position when he played the power play and went for all the power and all the stuff that comes with being the GM. If you turn around and give a second-round pick and basically $12 million more for a quarterback, and then you pull the plug in the fourth game, that doesn't look very good on the GM who made the trade. And the GM who made the trade is the head coach. So he's got an issue with that, and he's tied to Sam Bradford. And that's just where we are. That's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, let me ask you something about Sam. He's struggling, no question. Even in his worst, I don't think he looked as inaccurate in St. Louis. Is that something that is concerning moving forward? Is the fact that his struggles seem to be with inaccuracies? So is that something that worries you when you see that? Is he locking in on guys? Is he, doing things that are, that are starting to be trends that people are starting to see?
Yeah, he is, and it's basically, and we talked about it earlier in the week, it's basically the one read, and then he checks down. So he's looking at one receiver, whether, usually it's Jordan Matthews or Zach Ertz as the primary on one play, and if that's not there, he immediately checks it down to, who's the running back, the flat receiver, whether it's Darren Sproles or somebody else on the field. That's definitely been an issue, and that's definitely going on. But part of that is the fact that that's what Chip wants him to do. So I think, and that's what what I wrote about, is it Sam versus the scheme? I think it's a little bit of each. Sam, I think, would feel more comfortable being able to progress from receiver A to receiver B to receiver C and all the way down the progression tree, so to speak, but he's not asked to do that in this offense. They don't want to do that in this offense because they want to get the tempo going. They want to get the play run, and they want to get immediately up to the line and run the next play. So I think he's struggling with that mentality. He's not used to it. He hasn't really played that kind of offense since he was back in college at Oklahoma. And it's affecting other areas, and that's where you see the inaccuracy because he doesn't have confidence in himself right now.
All right, John's got a piece up right now at 97.3ESPN.com. The Friday Stock Watch after 3 games, a little bit of a sample size for the Eagles, and 10 guys who are playing very well so far and 10 guys who have been struggling so far. Let's start with the guys who have played well, because typically sports talk radio and sports in general focuses on the negatives. Let's look at some of the positives, because there have been some. I want to handpick a couple of guys. One is Jordan Hicks, and we've talked about him the last couple of weeks, John, but a lot of times, and Seth Joyner was talking about this on the TV the other night about, hey, sometimes a young guy goes out there and he just, plays well and you weren't prepared for it. And what has made you put him – I agree, but how did they handle him moving forward? Because I agree with you. I think he has deserved to be one of the guys that you put in that top 10 list.
Yeah, I think it's easy for the next month or so with Kiko Alonso still out. It becomes a much more difficult situation if Alonso gets ready to play, and he's got to get back in the mix, because obviously he's got the big name, he's got the reputation, and he's supposed to be an impact player on this defense. But right now, it's going to be a three-man rotation, as they expected, with Michael Kendricks. I fully expect him to be back on Sunday, and obviously D'Amico Ryans. And they need that rotation, because Ryans isn't really 100% coming off the Achilles. He's not played well. It looks like, he's having trouble with his explosion, and they need to sort of put him on a pitch count, which Billy Davis talked about. So it fits in nicely, and the fact that he's played so well, I think, has surprised all, even the Eagles, a little bit. And he's made splash plays, whether it's the interception, the fumble recovery. And as most inside linebackers are designed to do, he's been a tackling machine.
You have him number 10. I want to move down the list a little bit. Some of the under-the-radar guys that maybe people wouldn't assume would be one of the 10 guys in here. But one is Benny Logan. And, I know that position doesn't get a lot of attention. But what has impressed about him so far?
Well, he's been one of the most dominant run stoppers in pro football. He really has, and it's the major reason why it's been so difficult to run on the Eagles. And he would have been higher on the list, but he's struggling with his pass rush. And if he can get that side of it sort of figured out, and it's not about numbers for the Eagles, defensive line, because in the scheme, a 3-4 scheme, basically you're trying to tie up blockers and allow the linebackers to make plays. In Logan's case, he just wants an inside push on the pass rush. Hasn't really been getting it. But as a run stopper, he's been one of the 2 or 3 best in all of football.
Another guy that I think is an interesting name on this list is Walter Thurman, and he's a guy that weren't sure about. He played a lot of slot, had been injured, missed a lot of time last year with the Giants. They signed him. They put him at safety. I know we had conversations about, well, why don't they just put him on the corner and put Rowe at safety? Well, it seems that maybe they had a plan here.
Yeah, that's one decision that has worked out incredibly well for the Eagles, is the move for Walter Thurman back to safety. And everything they envisioned has come true. He's got the ball skills, obviously, of a cornerback, and that's what they haven't had back at the position for so many years, just somebody who can make plays when the ball's in the air. He's already proven he can do that. I know Pro Football Focus, as I wrote, has had him as the second-rated safety in all of pro football. I think that's a bit of an overstatement, but it tells you how well he's been playing. And it's, anytime you see somebody making such a drastic shift from slot cornerback to safety, and they play as well as Walter Thurman, it raises some eyebrows. But he's been great, and I think he's been the second-best player on the Eagles to this point. Interesting, and that's a good sign, if they can get good play from that safety spot, because we know, as a gentleman with a Dawkins jersey walks past me, since he left, they have not really been able to fill that position. And so far, Thurman, he's not been a Dawkins-type player. He's been more of a ball-hawking guy who forces turnovers more so than sacks and fumbles and that kind of stuff. But it's been a blessing. Best guy, Fletcher Cox. And, again, he plays a position where the stats aren't going to tell the story. But, John, I'll let you paint the picture of how good he's been. He's been great. He's been playing at all-pro level. Coming into this season, he was supposed to be the best, pure football player on the Eagles. He's lived up to it. He does everything you pour out of a 5 technique in a 3-4 defense. He dominates against the run. He's a great pass rusher. And last year, Connor Barwin's big year was a lot of that was directly due to Fletcher Cox. And you see it kind of morphing again early this season. When Connor's able to get in there, it's basically because Fletcher Cox is doing such a good job collapsing that pocket. And he's been the best player on the Eagles through 3 games. And that, I think, is no surprise to anyone, or it shouldn't be.
All right, John's got 10 bears, as he called it, guys who are not performing so well so far. And, these guys, some of them, we didn't really think that would be the case. Starting off with DeMarco Murray. I'm not saying that I'm writing him off, nor it doesn't sound like you're writing him off, but as you chronicle, the numbers tell the story for him. He's been a disappointment.
Yeah, 11 yards and 21 carries. You can make
unbelievable
all the excuses you want, but at some point, you have to get something done, and he hasn't. It's only been 2 games, obviously. He's questionable for Sunday. We'll see if he's able to get back on the field. But you saw the uptick in production from Ryan Matthews playing against the Jets, which in theory is the best front the Eagles have seen through the first 3 games. It's clear he's not comfortable in that shotgun offset look, but he's got to get comfortable. He's playing in this offense. He's going to be asked to do. Hopefully, the Eagles let him run with Bradford under center at least, a few times early in the game. Maybe that'll get him rolling, and maybe that'll get him more comfortable, and then you can get in that offset look that they like so much.
And when he came here, a lot of people said, well, they didn't run this in Dallas, but the narrative was, well, that's what they ran in Oklahoma. A lot of this out of the shotgun, him and Bradford. So is it a little bit surprising that he seems uncomfortable?
A little bit, just how drastic it's been. But, it's been a while since he's been at Oklahoma. Same with Bradford. And when you do, and you're not used to that system anymore, and all of a sudden it's a shock to the system when you're back in it. And, similar thing happened to Adrian Peterson in the first game when he struggled against San Francisco this year. People were talking about, the shotgun, the offset look. He didn't look comfortable. All of a sudden they went back to what he does well, and he's got 2 straight 100-yard games. Maybe that's what the Eagles need to do. Unfortunately, I don't see them doing it at least as consistently as a team like Minnesota has done with Peterson.
All right, I'll pick out a couple other guys for you. One that has been disappointing, that's a surprise, is Jason Kelce. A lot of times you look at him, John, as the rock on that line, calling out the plays and signaling everything. That's an area where it seems like he has typically been lauded for his effort. That's something that he seems like he's maybe not communicating quite as well. And when they brought DeMarco Murray here, one question I had was, all right, if you're going to a more power run style, does Kelce's style fit a more physical, more downhill running style?
No, it doesn't. What defines Jason Kelce is his athleticism, his mobility, his ability to get out and pull. You've seen him, at times 30, 40 yards down the field running in front of plays, and everyone goes, wow. When you have a player like that, you trade something. And what they trade with Jason Kelce is he's undersized. And teams have sort of adjusted, and what they've been doing is putting their biggest body right on the nose consistently the entire game and trying to force him to handle that nose tackle right away. And that is not enabling him to get to the second level, which is what he does so well. And unfortunately, I think it's going to continue this week in Washington because they have Terrence Knighton, and he's the biggest nose tackle maybe in the game. And it's just going to be really tough for Kelce. Hopefully they get something figured out.
Another guy has been Maxwell, and we know what he did or what they did this offseason to get him, $63 million. Bart Scott had an interesting comment and said they brought a zone corner and they're playing him into man. What do they expect? Should we expect a rocky season from that position?
Bart's right. He's 100% right. It's a zone cornerback, and they've asked him to play too much man coverage. So, as a whole, the Eagles' defense has been very good. It's been a surprise. They played better than expected, I think. In the one area you look at is Byron Maxwell. It's a big area, and part of it is because of the size of the contract. And I think they should, play a little bit more zone. You saw they were successful doing that against the Jets. I think the mentality, though, was they were trying to hide Jordan Hicks. They didn't have rookie linebacker trying to play man-to-man coverage. So they're trying to make up for him in the middle of the field, and all of a sudden it works. So hopefully they go back and look at that scheme and say, we do this pretty well, and it fits with Byron's skill set. So maybe we should morph towards that at least a little bit more in the game plan.
All right, for the rest of John's pluses and minuses, go to 97.3ESPN.com. If you were perusing the website last night and you saw 5 on the Skins, John has his pick up there, and now he'll tell you who he thinks will win the game on Sunday.
Yeah, I think this is a game the Eagles have to win. I think they're the better football team. I think this is a good chance to get things going in the right direction. I can't imagine at this stage this offense breaking out to a huge degree, but I expect them to have a 6-7 point win, and I think it's going to be 23-17 Eagles.
23-17 Eagles is John McMullen's pick. You heard it on the Sports Bash. And don't forget, an hour from now, you can make your picks for a chance at Cold Hard Cash. We're playing for $400 this week and pick the perfect score. John's got 23-17, but unfortunately for him, he's ineligible. All right, man. We'll see you.
As always.
Yeah, we will.
We'll put a stop down for some tickets.
We will talk to you Monday. We'll see you on Tuesday.
All right, thanks, guys.
You got it, man. John McMullen.